Welcome back. We're finally moving on to Canto 18 in the Inferno. But as I've been typically doing in the last few videos, I want to give you a little summary blurb so that the content makes more sense because the language and the historical allusions are hard to understand. And I've also done a little different thing with vocabulary. I've subdivided it, and it's in the comments below, into categories of vocabulary. And you'll see what I mean as I go through it, as I read it. So in the vocabulary, words that are descriptive or setting words, I'm going to use those. Fortress. I'm going to read them for those of you that are second language learners so you can hear the accent. Of course, mine is a deep Southern accent. So, fortress, which is a stronghold or a stone structure. Fortress is used in English now more metaphorically, more as a symbol of strength. There are very few fortresses in the United States, unless you go to a historical place to see an old fort or like a palace. Trenches or moats, again, a very old-fashioned, antiquated word. A trench we have, like in World War I, we had trench warfare or moats. Very few of us have palaces with moats around them, but they're ditches would be the equivalent word now. Or trenches is, like ditches is what we say in the South, maybe say everywhere. Bulwarks. These are defensive walls. Again, very specific words to the context. Bridges of rock. So natural arches spanning the ditches. So a bridge, we know what it is, and it's a bridge made out of rock. A cleft, a chasm, or an abyss. So notice that spelling of chasm is said chasm. And abyss, the accent is on the abyss, not on the abyss. So that's one of those interesting words in English. And in this particular setting, it's describing the gaping divisions of hell, but it means a cleft is like, sometimes they talk about a cleft in the chin. It's like that little dimple that's there, but it's a wide opening like a ditch, very similar to a ditch. In movement and punishment, interesting. Lashed is to be struck with a whip. Hopefully nobody's getting lashed, well, unless they want to be. Goaded is to be driven forward or farther. You're kind of poked. Keep going, keep going. You think about it when you're moving cattle or goats along, you goad them, and it's Goad. Flagellated is to be whipped repeatedly, and there are some religions during a certain holiday of different prophets, to show their sorrow or their support of the sacrifices that different prophets have made. They'll whip themselves constantly with a little whip. Wallowed. We talk about children wallowing in self-pity. It means rolling around and just sinking into, in this case, they're saying filth, like a pig wallows. But if you wallow in sadness, you're not wallowing in filth. You're wallowing in the emotion. You're just rolling in it and embracing it and enjoying it. Impelled is very much like to push it forward, to compel you to do it, something like that. Moral and human descriptions. So these are types of people. Seducers, those are people that lure you into sex. Panderers, they're pimps or those who profited from other sins. Flatterers, people that give praise just to get something from you. Defiled means you're dirty and you're corrupt. And obscene, you're morally offensive. These are very judgy words, right? And then these are those allusions, these references that this story has that I generally don't know, so I like to go over them because they give us some context. Venedico Cancianamico, I don't speak Italian. He's a Bolognese nobleman who sold his sister. Alessio Intermini of Lucca, he's a flatterer, which was that word we used before, and Thais, a courtesan, which is a person of the court, kind of like an influencer in modern day language, from Roman comedy. And then some emotional words, shame. We know that so many of us struggle with shame. Disgrace, loss of reputation because of sin. Again, very judgy word, but you can be in disgrace not because of sin. You can be an athlete that just quit or behaved badly in a performance. So it's not necessarily in sin anymore, but in this context it is. Abominable, like the abominable snowman. It's a detestable, like it's just a really big word for hatred. Filth is dirt, and in this context, moral corruption, and stench, a really bad, that's a really great word for something that smells bad. The stench was overwhelming, right? So there are words. Now let's go through what's going to happen, because this is a more modern version of what I'm going to read. And hopefully this makes more sense for those of you that are trying to do this for school, because ultimately you're not just reading for the language and the beauty of the language, but you're reading for the plot and the content and the understanding. So I think it helps to do it up front. And then when I read the story, maybe it will make more sense. Dante and his guide Virgil, that we're familiar with, descend in the next great circle of hell, Malebolge, the realm of fraud. Imagine a vast black pit shaped like a fortress with 10 long trenches circling down like moats around a castle. Bridges of rock arch across each trench so travelers like Dante and Virgil can look down upon the damned. They come to the first trench where the air cracks with the sound of whips. Here march the souls of Panders and Seducers, those who once drove others into lust for their own gain. Naked, they run in opposite directions, driven and lashed by horned demons who show no mercy. Dante's eyes fall on one he knows, Vindicio Caccianemico. That was the guy that was let me go back and look, the Bolognese noble who sold his sister. So that's not a really good thing to do. Who once sold his own sister to please a powerful marquis. That's like a lord or a baron. His shameful confession drips with bitterness. All around him, others from Dante's own home region shuffle and bleed under the same punishment. Remember, all the people in these circles share the same sin, so they're having the same punishment. So they're just shuffling around bleeding. Crossing over the second trench, Dante finds the punishment even fouler, even worse. Here wallow the flatterers, those who smeared lies and honey words to deceive. So that's considered a really bad sin. That gets you some real high price to have to pay in the afterlife. They are sunk to their chins in a river of human filth. So imagine a sewer. The stench rising so strong it makes Dante recoil, like it just make him gag. One man lifts his head smeared with slime, Alessio Intermini of Lucca, who admits that false praise was his ruin. He was a flatterer. Virgil points to a woman among them, still caked in filth, Thais, the courtesan from Roman comedy, who once told her lover, "Yes, my lord, you are marvelous," when he asked her if he had pleased her. Well, we not going to say anything. This is for younger people. For that empty flattery, she sinks forever in the muck. And so Dante sees in Malebolge, every sin of fraud is punished with its own fitting torment, filth for filth, lash for lash. The journey through this dark pit has only just begun. Now let's read the Divine Comedy version of this and see if we can figure out that this is actually what happened. So this is the 8th circle, Malebolge. And I'm just checking to make sure we're still recording, and it looks like we are, because I'm reading off the computer, so I can't see what's happening over here. And I just want to make sure we're not offline. We're not, so let's keep reading. There is a place in hell called Malebolge, wholly of stone of an iron color, as in the circle that around it turns. Right in the middle of the field, malign, there yawns a well exceeding wide and deep, of which its place the structure will recount. Round, then, is that enclosure which remains between the well and foot of the high, hard bank, and has distinct in valleys 10 its bottom. As where for the protection of the walls, many and many moats surround the castles, the part in which they are of figure forms. Just such an image there, those presented there, and as about such strongholds from their gates, unto the outer banks are little bridges. So from the precipice's base did crags project, which intersected dikes and moats. Dikes and moats are like levees that hold back the water until the well that truncates and collects them. Within this place, down shaken from the back of Geryon, remember Geryon was the monster that they rode down to this next level, he found us, and the poet held to the left, and I moved on behind. Upon my right hand, I beheld new anguish, new torments, and new wielders of the lash, wherewith the foremost Bolgia was replete. Down at the bottom were the sinners naked. This side, the middle, came they facing us, beyond it with us, but with greater steps. Even as the Romans, for the mighty host, the year of Jubilee upon the bridge, have chosen a mode to pass the people over. For all upon one side towards the castle their faces have, and go unto St. Peter's. On the other side they go towards the mountain. This side and that, along the livid stone, beheld I horned demons with great scourges, who cruelly were beating them behind. Ah me, how they did make them lift their legs at the first blows, and soothed not anyone the second waited for, nor for the third. While I was going on, my eyes by one encountered were, and straight I said, already with sight of this one I am not unfed. Therefore I stayed my feet, I kept my feet to make him out, and with me, like I was stood firmly, and with me the sweet guide came to a stand, and to my going somewhat backed assented. And he, the scourged one, thought to hide himself, lowering his face, but little it availed him, for said I, thou that castest down thine eyes, like he's doing this, if false are not the features which thou bearest, thou, he recognizes them, are Vindicio, Cacian, and Amico. But what doth bring thee to such pungent sauces? Pungent is the smell. And he to me, unwillingly, I tell it. If you hear a weird thing that sounds like snoring, my little Pomeranian is sleeping right beside me, and she has a breathing problem. So I'm sorry, I can't make that noise go away. I'm not sure if you hear it or not, but we love her, and she just needs to have her little snoring nap. Um, so he's identified. And he said to me, unwillingly I tell it, but forces me thine utterance distinct, which makes me recollect the ancient world. I was the one who the fair Gisola induced to grant the wishes of the Marquis. However, the shameless story may be told. Not the sole Bolognese am I from Bologna. A Bolognese is from Bologna, Italy. Am I who weeps here? Nay, rather is this place so full of them that not so many tongues today are taught. 'Twixt Reno and Savina to say Sipa. And if therefore thou wisest pledge or proof, so that means nothing to me. I would have to dig into it and do footnotes to see what twixt Reno and Savina say Sipa means. I have no clue. So if you're lost, don't feel confused. And if therefore thou wisest pledge or proof, bring to thy mind our avaricious heart. While speaking in this manner with his scourge, a demon smote him, like hit him, and said, get thee gone, Pander. There are no women here for coin. You can't buy a prostitute. I joined myself again unto mine escort, Virgil. There afterward, with footsteps few, we came to where a crag projected from the bank. This very easily did we ascend, and turning to the right along its ridge, from those eternal circles we departed. When we were there, where it is hollowed out beneath, to give a passage to the scourge, the guide said, wait, and see that on thee strike the vision of those others evil born, of whom thou hast not yet beheld the faces, because together with us they have gone. From the old bridge we looked upon the train which towards us came upon the other border, and which the scourges in like manner smite. Smote and smite are both hit. They're just different tenses of hitting. And the good master, without my inquiring, said to me, see that tall one who is coming, and for his pain seems not to shed a tear? Still, what a royal aspect he retains. That Jason is, who by his heart and cunning the Colchians of the Ram made destitute. He by the Isle of Lemnos passed along after the daring women, pitiless, had unto death devoted all their males. There with his tokens and with ornate words did he deceive Hypsipyle. Hypsipyle, what a fun word. Hypsipyle, the maiden who first herself had all the rest deceived. There did he leave her pregnant and forlorn, sad. Such sin unto such punishment condemns him, and also for Medea is vengeance done. With him go those who in such wise deceive, and this sufficient be the first valley to know, and those that in its jaws it holds. We were already where the narrow path crosses athwart the second dike, and forms of that a buttress for another arch. Thence we heard people who are making moan in the next Bolgia, snorting with their muzzles and with their palms beating upon themselves. The margins were encrusted with a mold by exhalation from below that sticks there, and with the eyes and nostrils wages war. The bottom is so deep, no place suffices to give us sight of it without ascending the arches back where most of the crag impends. Thither we came, I love that word thither. And thence, down in the moat, I saw people smothered in a filth that out of human privies seemed to flow. Privies are like outhouses, toilets. And whilst below there with mine eye I search, I saw one with his head so foul with ordure. I think that's odor, but I'd have to look that up. It was not clear if he were clerk or layman. He screamed to me, all of a sudden I got an accent. He screamed to me, "Wherefore art thou so eager to look at me more than the other foul ones?" And I to him, "Because if I remember, I have already seen thee with dry hair, and thou art Alicio Intermenia of Luca. Therefore I eye thee more than all the others." He's like, "Why are you looking at me?" He's like, "Because I know you." And he thereon, belaboring his pumpkin, "The flatteries have submerged me here below, wherewith my tongue was never surfeited." Then said to me the guide, Virgil, "See that thou thrust thy visage, your face, somewhat further in advance, that with thine eyes thou well the face attain. Of that uncleanly and disheveled drab, who thou dost scratch yourself with filthy nails, and crouches now, and now on foot is standing, Thais, the harlot is it, who replied under her paramour, her lover, when he said, Have I great gratitude from thee? Nay, marvelous. And herewith let our sight be satisfied. I tell you, it's like me reading in Portuguese or French. I know enough Portuguese, and French I know better. I can pretty much understand everything I read in French, but in Portuguese, I can understand about every fourth word. I might even know the verbs, but I don't know what the meaning of the words are when I put them together. And you kind of know what's going on, but you're kind of lost at the same time. That's how I feel. I'm a very educated, I have a master's degree, I've been all over the world, I've studied history, and that's how I feel when I read Inferno. And at this point, I'm just committed to it and dredging through it to get this book done. So those of you that are studying, teachers that are teaching it in school, be gentle and be supportive and make the assignments where you really dig in for the reading comprehension. Because I find this hard. And maybe it's just my lack of ability, but it's to me like reading a language I kind of know, but don't quite really understand all the subtleties of it or all the meaning of the words. So hang in there, keep digging in your resources to read it. And, let's get through this book so we can get to something more fun. And I'm going to look through Project Gutenberg to see, I might want to read Little Women. I was reading that with one of my students. I might want to read Frankenstein or Dracula because October's coming. I'm not sure what will be next, but if you have some ideas, enter them below. And I added one more subscriber, so yay. And those of you that have little children, and most of you are in high school, so hopefully you don't have little children, but if you do, God bless. I've been reading to my granddaughter over on another playlist called Bedtime Stories, and it's all kinds of Aesop's fables and different short little stories. So if you are an English second language learner, that might be helpful for you too. So check that out on the playlist. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends, teachers, if this is a resource that's helpful to you. DM me on Instagram, Best Tutor Friend, and I would be happy to engage with you and help you with your teaching or give you advice on teaching reading comprehension. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm determined to regrow this channel as hard as it might be, as long as it might take. I want to keep growing. One of the things, and I have mentioned that I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. One of the things I'm trying to do is preserve my voice because that's one of the things that will go with the Parkinson's. So the practice of speaking loudly, which I've always been known for, is very good for me. It helps my voice strengthen. So I'm doing this as much for me as for you. My goal is to get it back to where I can monetize and I get some passive income. So as I'm retired, I can have some income to live off of because in the United States, we don't do a lot to take care of healthcare or aging adults. So there's my little blurb of politics at the end. That's just for those of you that stayed long enough to hear it. I appreciate all of you. And when I get comments from students, somebody else found me the other day and made a comment on my YouTube. And it just means the world to me that as a teacher, I've been able to help you. And that's what I love about teaching because I want us to learn. I think the answer to all the world's problems right now is teaching us to think intelligently, to evaluate fairly, to assess situations based on logic and reason and emotion, and to develop good mental health habits so that these horrible things like school shootings, and we had another one just this week, address the heartbreak of the individual that feels like the only answer is to kill themselves and kill everybody else with them. So if we can grow as humans on something like this platform, and instead of using it to, like the influencer that was referenced in this piece, instead of seeing it as, I've got to look this certain way, I've got to project this certain life. But if we can just say, we're all unique and we're all interesting and we're all different, and we all have a right to exist and to exist with respect and with dignity, that's the world I want to live in. And that's the world I'm trying to create here on YouTube. So if you like that world, interact with me, engage, support, like, subscribe, and live your very best life. Thanks for reading with me. I'm going to get right back on and read my bedtime story to my granddaughter, but I will read to you next time. See ya.